The Wellness Show, episode 219. Welcome to The Wellness Show, a podcast on health and wealth. I'm your host, Tyhson Banighen, the founder of the Extraordinary Healing Arts Academy. Join me as we get the latest insight, tips, and strategies from wellness providers, coaches, and successful, heart-centered entrepreneurs, and much, much more. Welcome to the Wellness Show, and this is Tyhson Banighen, your host, the Illuminator, bringing you and humanity into light. And this is, yet again, another exciting show because we're talking about living a full life with ADHD. In fact, living a full life with ADHD was hard enough for me even to spell and get it right, all the initials right. So obviously I have a problem. Dyslexia may or may not be related, but we're going to find out all about this from Ted. Ted Behr, he's an ADHD life coach, and this is something that he's discovered for himself. And his personal story is quite interesting because, Ted, you didn't come to this until later on in your life. You said, what? What's this all about, right?
Well, it is kind of interesting because I've been doing ADHD coaching since the turn of the century.
Oh, my goodness.
About really 2 years after I finished my certification back then we called it a personal and professional coach. It was before the term life coach was even around. I did a special training course in ADHD coaching. And it was sort of a sideline. I would get ADHD clients as they went along here and there, or I would discover somebody I was working with had ADHD. But I never, and I have always, in some level, been challenged with organization and physical time, but it never occurred to me that I had ADHD. Because when I learned about it, at that time, the criteria was you had to have it as a child, had to have shown up as a child. And then about 5 years ago, I was working with a business coach who also did some ADHD coaching, and I was complaining once again about my difficulty in being organized and getting stuff done. And she said, you've got ADHD. And I said, no, I don't think so. She said, yeah, you do that. I did this online assessment, and I was like right in the middle of the chart. Oh my God,
wow.
Explains so much, like why I never wrote a dissertation and why I got fired from 4 jobs and why I had 12 jobs and 7 careers until I found coaching.
Well, that's really interesting. And now, your passion is to help other people understand this and how to work through it and how to have a full, meaningful life, even if they've been diagnosed. And I'm sure you help people figure out that this is a problem that they didn't even know they had.
Yeah, I definitely have had that kind of conversation. I've had people, as I said, like in the past, I've had a client I started working with, and as I've got to know them, I sort of realized that pretty sure that they had it, and I actually would recommend that they go get evaluated. And some of them did, and in fact, yes, they turned out to get an official diagnosis of ADHD. And I think, and sometimes I also work with people who think they might have it but haven't been diagnosed and don't really want to go through all that, and that's fine. But I do recommend it or suggest it because, one, if it's true that they actually have the diagnosis of ADHD, that they have the condition, that, like it did for me, that can help explain a lot about their past.
So talk a little bit more about how that can explain their past.
Well, when ADHD can involve a lot of struggle. Everything from challenges in school, difficulty getting homework done, taking a long time, to they said underperforming in jobs, getting fired from jobs, having trouble getting things done. Like I said, like I spent 5 years in graduate school in a PhD program, but I hardly ever even started a dissertation because I wasn't interested in it.
Is that because you couldn't focus on it, or
No,
give me some more clear?
One of the hallmarks of ADHD is that in terms of accomplishing things, getting, finishing tasks or projects, those with ADHD have a kind of a big split, which is things that we're really interested in, we find engaging, even fun, or challenging in a good way. It's like we're on that. It's hard to get us to stop. But if it's something we find boring, not appealing, not engaging, it's like we could care less.
That sounds like me in school.
It could be. It could be.
I mean, now, certainly in high school anyway. I mean, I did all right in university, but high school was like.
And it all has to do with the neurochemistry, the chemistry in the brain.
So where does the hyper part come from? Talk about that. How does the hyperactivity how does it manifest, or how does it get in the way out?
Well, it is in kids. It manifests by them having a lot of trouble sitting still. So they keep getting up, or they're sitting in their chair, but they're like squirming and they're shaking their legs and stuff like that. And it's particularly shows up in boys with ADHD.
And what about for adults?
So what happens is the hyperactivity kind of goes inside.
Oh, okay.
So somebody still, there can be sort of the fidgeting type, of hyperactivity, but it goes into the mind. Our minds get really hyperactive, so that we're just generating ideas and thoughts and like all the time, and which makes it hard to stay focused on something you're working on, or on a conversation with somebody.
So does that mean that does that mean like creating new ideas is far more exciting than actually bringing them into fruition?
It's like it's what the brain's doing on its own.
Right.
And it can be, the ideas can be very creative and interesting, but sometimes they come so fast for people. It's like it's hard for them to focus on anything.
Right. Well, I have a friend and he's got so many ideas per square inch, or he has so many ideas. I say, you got so many planes in the air. Why don't you just land one of them? But it's far more interesting for him to conceive of more planes in the air.
Well, there is that. That is true. It is more interesting to kind of generate more ideas and actually implement them.
Right. So that may be what's going on with him too. So how do you deal with parents that are confronted with this whole thing? Well, we've got to give the Johnny Ritalin, or we have to give them this drug or that drug how do you deal with all of that? I mean, for me, I would have been one of those kids. Thank God none of those drugs were around when I was a kid.
Well, one thing actually that you and I didn't talk about, didn't come up in our conversation, is I only work with adults.
Ah, okay. So you don't have to work with that aspect, right?
And I don't have any experience. I don't have children myself. So yeah, I just work generally adults, ages 30 and up. So I don't work.
And how do they? So these are all people that know that they've been diagnosed, or
sometimes, as I said, some have been. Some were diagnosed as children. Some have been diagnosed as adults. Some have been diagnosed. I think they might have it. So it could be any one of those, and any people would fall in any one of those categories.
So as a coach, what sort of things are you working with them? I know we're going to be varied from what level they're at as far as or what intensity is going on. But sort of if it's possible to talk sort of from a general point of view, what sort of things as a life coach are you helping them come to terms with or work around or work through or be creative with?
Mm-hmm. Sure. Well, there are really four aspects of the work I do with clients. So one is definitely working with the challenges that they have. And whether that's with organization, productivity, procrastination, lateness, clutter, it's different. It's different for different people in terms of what are the things that are the most difficult for them. And
Yeah,
so,
well, that makes sense to me. So, I mean, one of the things you're wanting to do is you got a new program coming up with procrastination. So, is this sort of a big one of the four things that you were talking about, or just one of them?
well, that's one of that's comes under the challenges of ADHD.
Right.
That general category. The second thing I work is to help people to help them learn what their strengths are and how they can play to their strengths.
Ah, that's a good one. So
And
sort of
there
like
are particular strengths that people tend to have that come from the ADHD. So people with ADHD tend to be more creative. They're good risk takers. They're really good with people. You'll find people with good careers for people with ADHD are in the helping professions or actually in sales. People with ADHD can be great salespeople, but don't ask them to keep records.
right. Well, that's really fascinating. So there's whole areas in which they can really excel in that you can help them then focus on. And so, like you said, the whole topic, living a full life with
Right.
ADHD is helping them understand what those strengths are, their particular strengths, and helping them manifest that into the reality.
Right, and that can really shift how people think about ADHD and think about themselves, because now it's not just a bunch of different difficulties and problems, but there are things about it that actually are good for them. The third area I work on with people is their self-talk and beliefs, what goes on inside their head, because people with ADHD tend to get a lot of negative feedback as particularly as kids, but even as adults. It's like they're told that they're lazy. How come you're not, you're not working hard enough? How come, you're so good at math? How come you can't do history and English, right? And when in jobs, how come you're too slow? Come on, speed it up. You're taking too long. So it really has a damaging effect on people's self-esteem, their self-confidence, and so I can come up with all the different systems to help them with their challenges and get them involved in things that are their strengths. But if they don't deal with what's going on inside their head, none of that's going to go anywhere, because they'll essentially sabotage themselves.
Well, that makes sense too. Do you get to work with any companies or to help them understand how employable these people are? Has that ever showed up as an opportunity? Or
I haven't gotten to that myself. I think there may be other ADHD coaches that do that kind of thing. But you talk about understanding, so that actually leads me into the fourth area that I work with people's education.
Okay.
Because they generally don't know much about it and how it works, and so again, they think like the things that they do is because of some failure of theirs, And I want to make sure they understand that it's because their brain is different.
Right.
And one of the things I want to say here, sort of as a side note, is the term ADHD, standing for attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Two of those words are really wrong. First of all, it's not a disorder. There's nothing wrong with us.
Well, I love that. I think you're right.
Our brain is different. Our neurochemistry is different. And that creates certain problems for people, but it's not because there's something, we have a disorder. And I strongly object to that. The other thing is, it's not attention deficit. I said, if I'm working on something I find really interesting and engaging, I can get, like, we call what's called hyperfocus. Like, I can get even too attentive to it and get lost in it. So it's actually a problem of attention regulation, bringing the right amount of attention to things and being able to learn how to bring attention to things that we're not really interested in.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. As an artist, when I was doing art, I would be lost. I'd be doing that. I would even forget to eat because I'd be so focused on something I wanted to do. I mean,
that's hyperfocus.
Yeah, it's hyperfocus. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that you don't want to be hyper-focused on everything,
right,
to the detriment of other things.
And there's nothing wrong with it, and it can cause difficulties if you do lose track of, if you've got if you've got an appointment with somebody and you get so hyper-focused on something that you totally forget about it, that can be a problem. So also in my work with people, it's like helping them learn to regulate their attention so that, if they want to devote an hour to something and make sure that they only do an hour, then people set alarms, multiple alarms, because one alarm can go off and they can go, all right, turn it off, and they're back. But it's like after the second or third one, it's like, oh, they kind of come out of it and say, oh, okay, I need to move on.
Well, that's interesting. Walter Russell, he was a genius. I don't know if you know about him, but he had 4 areas in which he was hyper creative in, and what he would do was divide his day into 4-hour chunks, in which he would, at the end of that 4 hours, go move to the other passion that he had. And he had 4 different, almost completely different studios to do the 4 things that he loved.
Wow.
So again, it had to be with management of this excessive ability to create and and be involved. And he wanted to manage his time so that he could put equal attention to each. Very interesting. So I like the fact that you're really helping people understand that just because the chemistry in your brain or the wiring in your brain is different, that makes you unique, and that you have some skills that are really awesome, and maybe even some superhuman skills if you know how to use them that other people don't have access to. And then on top of that, because you have these unique abilities, there's some jobs that you will excel in and others that you won't. So helping people discover what those unique possibilities are, and it sounds to me like you're saying there's a whole range, like variations of each one of those categories that you're talking about, whether it's having a chaos around you in your environment, or your ability to focus, that this shows up in various degrees with various people.
Yeah, and that's true. And just like any sort of condition of this kind, some people have it, or it's, I don't want to say it's worse, because that's not exactly the way to say it, but some people just have more difficulties than others.
Yeah.
That the challenges are more serious, are more difficult. And the other thing about ADHD, which increases the challenge, is there's, I think, forget what the numbers are. Somebody with ADHD is like 4 times as likely to have another mental health condition as the general population.
And why do you think that is?
I don't. To be honest, I think because again, some of us like depression and anxiety and
Yeah.
bipolar and OCD, they all have something to do with what goes on in the brain and the brain.
Yeah, and I guess the stigma is, we all grow up with the desire to fit in, whether we know at that earlier age that fitting in is not necessarily the goal, but we think it is, peer pressure, school environment, fit in. For a lot of us, the fact that fitting in was not an easy road for us. Like we weren't here to fit in. We weren't born to fit in. It can create a bit of a stigma for people because they've spent a lot of their time trying to fit in when they, somebody like you helps them realize just how unique they are, that fitting in is not the goal. Discovering who you are and your uniqueness is the goal, and what unique gifts you have to bring to the world. It's not fitting in. So it's sort of counter to our culture.
Yeah, for sure. And of course, not fitting into kind of blend, sort of blur one's own identity, or but to be connected, to be part of a community or communities.
Yes.
One of the things that it's also true, a challenge, a lot of people with ADHD, is it can be pretty isolated.
Right.
And it's really important for us, as it is for everybody, but to get ourselves connected, whether that's through a church, a synagogue, a mosque, some sort of religious community, or an artistic community.
But don't you provide that for your clients through your Facebook?
Well, I just very recently started a Facebook group. I've had a Facebook page for quite a while, but a Facebook group, I now have about 50 people in it. And we're just sort of getting off the ground, and that can provide some sense of connection. But I'm really talking about, personal connection, in-person connection.
So can you do like Zoom meetings to bring people together? Can you do like Zoom meetings so people meet each other?
I could do that.
Because I'm assuming you got clients everywhere. I mean, if you were in one community, you could bring them back, could bring them together in some sort of event. You have clients everywhere, right?
Oh, I do. Yeah, for sure. I am talking about in-person people you're friends with, people you see, that you interact with, that you have meals with.
Yeah.
It's different.
It is different.
And certainly I know that social media, in this way, I was reading about something recently, has been a godsend for people who are more isolated, who are homebound, elders. But I know for myself, it's a challenge to. I have to consciously make dates with people and call up my friends and get myself out of the house. I don't know. It's exactly what it is, but and I tend to be introvert. I don't know whether that's. It's interesting. I don't know whether there's any statistics that show sort of percentage of introverts versus extroverts who are with ADHD. That'd be interesting to look up.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, you're an introvert in your own life with your own friends, but you're an extrovert in helping other people with the same problem. So I mean, there's something about the passion of you going through your life experiences that you want to shorten that experience or that length of time for other people to figure out
Oh,
that there's ways
absolutely,
through it.
absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
there's people with ADHD have a fair amount of pain because of things that in their life that aren't working, and
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be that way. I mean, it takes work, to
Yeah.
create the changes, because it is having to create, in a way, substitutes for the parts of our brain that aren't working as the way they should. So um, the part of the brain that gets particularly impacted is the part of the brain that has to do with decision making and planning and prioritizing and um, focusing, getting things done. And so we have to find things external to us that support us in those areas.
Yeah, it's interesting because I have a friend who has come up with a sort of like a calendar where he wants to do certain things, and some of the things like he doesn't want to do because he's for all the reasons that you were saying, that we're very good and focused in some areas and to the detriment of other areas because it's easier when you have this diagnosis to focus on what you want, what gives you the pleasure to achieve. And that's probably normal, basic for most people. But so he's come up with a calendar where, if he's going to do this amount of this thing, then if there's a check off and it's over the week, then he gives himself a reward.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the way that he helps himself, stay on track to do the little things that otherwise would go by the wayside because he's so focused on what it is that gives him the pleasure. I thought that was pretty neat. I mean, it's
that's definitely a strategy that I teach people, if that works for some people, to when there's something they have to do, they don't want to do.
Yeah.
Doing their taxes, cleaning the house, a variety of things. Some people are giving themselves a reward. Maybe it's going out for a 15-minute walk, taking the dog for a walk. For me, the thing I have to be careful of is the reward I want is chocolate ice cream.
Well, I like that one too. Yeah, I mean,
and I have to be careful with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I get that.
But rewards, finding another strategy for getting. It's how do we motivate ourselves to do those things? So another way to do it is to tie something into something that is important to us.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say you work in an office environment, and your boss assigns you a report to write on something that you have really no interest in, and you could care less about writing this report, but you care about being seen as a professional.
Right.
Or you care about being employed, having an income.
Yeah, that's a good one.
But more on a value.
That's a good one.
Stronger is on the values level, and So, or somebody, family, whoever in the family is the one who is responsible for cleaning the house. It's like, well, they don't like doing that. They may not like doing it, but having a clean home for their family is important. And so they kind of tie that and say, okay, I really want to have a clean home for my family, so I'll do this thing I don't really want to do. And then it's like also how you go about doing it so that it's manageable. So rather than saying, okay, I'm going to go and spend 4 hours cleaning the house today, it's like I'm going to spend 15 minutes a day for the rest of the week, or a half hour a day. We start in one room, one corner of one room, and just do that. And then the next day I'll do another part. So it's like stretch it out, and it becomes easier to then take it on, because it's like, oh God, I know it's got this huge thing to get done, all this stuff, and wash the kitchen floor, and vacuum, yada. Like, let me turn on television.
Yeah, tell me about clutter. I mean, that's one of the big ones in my life, and is that that's, you're saying, is one of the ways
A lot of
it
clutters,
shows up
yeah,
is
the organization in general. So yeah, I have to say, I have a fair amount of clutter, and it's like, who cares?
yeah,
You know?
yeah,
Then
right,
I get to say, wait a minute, it really feels good when my house is neat and clean, and that's how I want to
right,
feel, right? So okay, I'll work on, and again, it's like, rather than saying, okay, I've got to clear it all up at once, which then it's like, forget it. It's like, okay, I'm just going to work on the dining room table.
right,
Clear that off,
yeah,
and then I'm done. Then I can go do something else that I really want to do. And then maybe the next day I get out and vacuum the living room rug and the couch, and I do, and straighten up the coffee table, or whatever. Doing a little, that's one of the things I definitely teach my clients. Or I just
yeah.
actually wrote a Facebook comment to somebody 2-3 days ago who was talking about she couldn't get going cleaning her house, and so I wrote it out. Just break it up. Just say, okay, I'm going to start in this room. I'm going to start in the bedroom, in that corner, and I'm going to just do 15 minutes. And when 15 minutes, I'm going to set an alarm. When 15 minutes is up, stop, do something else, and I can pat myself on the back for doing that. And if at the end of 15 minutes I want to continue, that's fine too. But you don't have to. No requirement. If you don't do that, that's like you're not doing a good job. And then the next day, go in and do another 15 minutes.
So are you finding, for you and your clients, are you finding that a calendar is really important? Is it important to do the same things at the same time? Does that help,
It can help. It can help a lot.
Yeah.
One of the things that I work with my clients on is around establishing routines.
Uh-huh.
Again, as I said, I mentioned earlier, the part of the brain that's affected particularly by ADHD includes the part that is about making decisions. So making decisions can be hard for us. And the other thing is, people start talking about we have a certain amount of decision energy. You may have run across that in terms of willpower. It's a little more common. Say we've got a reservoir of willpower that we start the day with, and as we go along, we use that up, then we get to something we really needed, we're out of it. So you want to plan. Well, that's true for people with ADHD. That's true around decision making. So
yeah, I never heard of that before, but that does make sense.
Right. So anything we can do to what I call pre-decide. I didn't make that up. People run across that term, to pre-decide, so that in the moment we don't have to decide. So it's like in the morning, or even so in the evening, I put out my clothes for the next day. I get out I put my, this is hypothetical, because I don't go anywhere, but I wear sweats a lot. But if I'm going out, if I were going to do that, and if getting going in the morning is a challenge for me, reducing the number of decisions I have to make in the morning is going to help a lot. So getting out my clothes the night before, putting my briefcase out, and make sure my keys are, by the door. Maybe even say get out the cereal that I'm going to eat, so that And you say, okay, I get up at such and such a time. I take a shower and shave, and then I work out for half an hour on the treadmill, or maybe I do that first, and then I shower probably. Then I eat for half an hour, and then I leave. And if I do that every morning, then I don't have to make those decisions about what I do next, because it's all planned out, and it makes those routines that make things a lot easier. And then they leave the decision-making energy available for the things that we really need to make a decision.
So where does the concept come from that we only have so much energy to make decisions? Oh, there's a bit of an echo here. Oh, there's just an echo, so hopefully we can get past the echo. Where does the concept that there's only so much energy in a day to make decisions come from, I wonder? Is it just our overall energy, do you think, that we get tired in the afternoon and therefore
no, I think it specifically has to do with decision making. Again, as I said, was talking about, I think they've done more work on that around people written about willpower. But I ran across that actually not too long ago, that they've done some experimentation around that. And like an interesting thing in terms of that, for instance, as people decide how to spend their time, their work time, one thing people will, there are times when we'll sort of focus on things that are more challenging, and times we want to do things that are kind of easier and take less energy, right? And there's this notion that email is one of those things, but it's not. Email actually requires a huge amount of decision-making energy. You have to make at least one decision for every email you look at, and often more than one. Maybe, do I delete this? Or what do I do? Do I answer it? If I do, what am I going to say? Well, how many decisions is that going to involve, right?
Yeah,
so
really.
Doing email is not something to do when somebody wants to kind of relax their brain. It's not.
Right.
It really isn't.
I think another, one of the systems, and I'm still always working with this, is there's categories. Do I look at this email? Do I even want to deal with it? Is it relevant? No, trash it. Do I need to spend some more time on it? I don't want to know. Okay, goes into I need to pay attention to box. Like literally going through your email and just dumping what you
can. But every one of those is a decision.
Yeah, I know it is, but the thing is, if you're like me, then if you don't do that, then you're going to have to make the same bloody decision. Those like 4 different major decisions over and over every time you hit it.
That you can avoid it. You have to do it, but don't think it's a relaxing activity.
No, I'm saying is try and categorize it the first time through, so you don't have to keep making those decisions every time you hit the same email again. That's what I'm saying.
Oh yeah,
which I tend not to do.
Yeah, this whole thing about touch things once, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
and sometimes we can't always do that. But there's a rule. It's not just with ADHD, but in sort of the general productivity field of, if there's something you can do in 2 minutes or less, then do it now.
Yeah, I like that. I can see in a day, I don't know about you, but sometimes in a day I have to go just play a game. I gotta win at something. I gotta get something under my belt to say, hey, wow, I did that, right? I gotta have some success lollipop in order to feel like I'm getting somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It
reminds me, it's sort of totally different thing in terms of game, but one of the challenges for those with ADHD is getting started, because of the way, in this case, it's how dopamine we're short on dopamine in the brain, and it's dopamine that kind of gets you going. So if for people who have trouble getting started first thing in the day in terms of work, say do something fun for 10 minutes.
That sounds good.
Do a puzzle if you like puzzles. Do a Sudoku or a crossword puzzle, or even watch some funny cat videos. But to get, and then say, but you got to do it. Okay, I'm going to do it for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Set that alarm, and then say, okay, then I'm going to go on and do something else. But it's like you're getting yourself engaged. It's fun. Your brain's starting to be, and then you can say, okay, now I can take that energy and focus and move it to something that's more challenging for me.
What about diet? Is diet have a big effect on this?
There's definitely research that shows that can be a high protein diet. Some people have to be careful with gluten intolerance or dairy, lactose intolerance. But a healthy
lactose intolerance.
A healthy diet, regular exercise. I mean, of course, just about any condition or part of your health that you read, whether it's your heart, your muscles, your, avoiding strokes, whatever.
Right.
Diet, healthy diet and exercise. But it's true. I mean, exercise, the endorphins, gets energy moving in your body. Regular exercise is very, very, very helpful for dealing with ADHD.
Well, this has really been a fascinating discussion. So, Ted, how do people get hold of you to work further with you and get their lives back on track?
Okay, so my website is livefullywithadhd.com. LIVEFULLYWITH ADHD, livefullywithadhd.com. That's also the name of my Facebook page where you can find me, and my Facebook group. So I'm very consistent in that.
Good.
Or they can, my email address is coachted@tedbehr.com. And
Coach Ted at what?
Ted Behr, my name, TED.
Or Ted Behr, okay. Yeah, .com.
It's another way to reach me. But people
Right.
can go to my website and message me there, or find me on Facebook and message me there. I love to talk to people, get to know them, find out what's going on with them, see what I might be able to do to help them get more control of their life. I want to help people enjoy life. And not enjoying life, it's like, what's the point, right? But
Exactly.
they make it really challenging to enjoy life because of some of the issues that we deal with. And the more people can kind of get control of those and bring their strengths into it and deal with what's going on in here, it opens it up a lot for real enjoyment.
Yeah, and what could be better than that? And
Yeah, absolutely.
real enjoyment.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Ted. It was wonderful having you on the show.
Thank you, Tyson. I've enjoyed it very much.
All right, bye for now.
Bye-bye.
For quality online wellness products, courses, and services, visit our sponsors, thewellnessstore.ca and the Extraordinary Healing Arts Academy located at thewellnessacademy.ca. To stay in touch, visit us at thewellnessshow.ca. And until next time, be healthy, wealthy, and wise.